Hey guys, Kai here, and in this video we're going to take a look into the Ubisoft Forward event. Now, most of the info we already knew about, but it was nice to see some actual gameplay to go along with it. We'll be taking a closer look at the combat, social stealth, the assaults, and that interesting release date. If you enjoy this content, hit that like button, and don't forget to hit that sub button to keep up with the latest info. Now, let's get into it. One of the most interesting things about Valhalla is not necessarily gameplay, but the fact that Ubisoft keeps reiterating the fact that Valhalla is based on a real authentic Viking experience, and not the myths and folklore of the Viking era. I feel like they are really trying to separate themselves from the God of War franchise, which I feel shouldn't be necessary, but it might be. Looking around online, people really are comparing Valhalla to God of War, even claiming God of War is the better Viking game. Valhalla isn't even out yet, and people are fighting over the better Viking game. It isn't even remotely close to being the same game, but because the setting is Vikings, people just do it. I think it's a smart choice from Ubisoft marketing the game this way, even though they really shouldn't have to. Now, getting into some gameplay, the combat does look really gnarly. Ubisoft wanted the combat to feel crunchy, weighty, and visceral. I think that they really accomplished that. In the gameplay, we see a ton of axes being thrown. We see enemies' heads getting chopped off left and right. Now, with regards to the throwing axes, I find it interesting that Eivor can apparently hold like 10 of these things. From the gameplay, we see Eivor throw 2 axes, then grab 2 more and throw those, then whip out 2 more. Now, there was an ability being used. If we look at the right side, the top ability is 2 axes. Now I wonder if this is an ability to throw axes in general, or if it's some magical ability where 2 axes just spawn in the hands and they don't count as being physically held. But this would then make me question the realism Ubisoft has been promoting so much for Valhalla. The hits of the weapons appear to really have weight behind the weapon when it makes contact with the enemy. And these are some areas where people were complaining about, and I'm happy to see Ubisoft addressing them. We can see Eivor dodging and rolling off enemies, which is a cool little feature in the game. We finally saw some dual-wielding shield combat, which is going to make for a great challenge of beating the whole game with just shields. They mentioned a new stun system in the game, which looks like when you shoot enemies in the leg, they get stunned, which would be a natural reaction, so that's nice that it's added. My favorite part of the combat gameplay was the finishing attacks. They showed like 2 or 3, but they were all very brutal and very satisfying. And we can't have combat without enemies. It was nice Ubisoft went into a little more depth with their enemies, since they were previously stating Valhalla had a very large variety, and that the AI was smarter. I was pleased with what I saw, but I still have my concerns about the AI. Yes, they show enemies that use dead bodies as weapons, some that fight while they're on fire, and all have different fighting styles. But my main issue with every AC game has been that when multiple enemies attack, only one attacks while the other just stand there. I'm afraid this would be the same in Valhalla. They explicitly say some will coordinate with their allies, and that means only a certain type will do this. I might be asking too much, but I want all the enemies to fight with coordination. I'm glad that Ubisoft are adding some enemies that coordinate together, as it will add more realism to the game and hopefully move the series closer to having more improved AI. One of the most exciting parts for me is the return of the social stealth. Not gonna lie, this has always been my favorite feature in the Assassin's Creed series. I know Ubisoft strayed away from the stealth in recent titles and has and still receives a lot of hate for that. While I really don't know why it was removed in the first place, I'm glad they are listening and bringing it back. I understand they want to expand and upgrade their game, so I don't hate them for that. But the social stealth and stealth in general is what made the Assassin's Creed series what it was. Anyways, the social stealth looks like it got a bit of an upgrade as well. We still have the classic hood up walking with people to blend in, but it appears that there are some new stealth options as well. We see what looks like Eivor kneading bread and watching their target. The next one is an upgrade to the bench, and we see Eivor sitting at a table with others. I really like these additions as it makes for a more realistic assassin gameplay. If you guys haven't caught on, I'm a really big fan of realism, and I just think these are basic things that an assassin would do. And I'm glad that they're finally adding more types of social stealth to the game. I'm hoping there are some other options as well that we haven't seen to add more diversity to our sneaky options. One of the biggest additions in the Assassin's Creed series in Valhalla is the addition of assaults. These will be huge attacks on the castles in England. Now, we still don't know how many the game will have, but when they happen, they are apparently going to be huge. The reveal showed an attack on Berg Castle. We can see the rams being used to open the castle doors, huge ladders to break the lines of the castle, which looks awesome. Now, it said massive assaults, but if I'm being honest, they didn't look that massive. We don't see a ton of enemies in the footage shown, and it looks like a regular battle. I'm hoping that these were potentially the beginning assaults and the most epic ones are being hidden so the surprise is not ruined. Now, what we know about assaults in details is that it isn't something that just happens. Eivor has a few things to do. Eivor can use stealth to take out the enemy numbers for an advantage. While this wasn't shown, I think it's really cool that players have this option. I'm not sure if the players will know how many enemies the castle will have, I'm assuming you would though, because how would you know how many you would need to recruit yourself? And this is the next point. Eivor has to go around and recruit soldiers for their attacks, a fyrd if you will. And guess what? Some people won't want to. So there will be plenty of quest helping and convincing people to help you fight in the assault. Now the final thing I want to talk about in this video is the release date. It was revealed that Valhalla will be coming out on November 17th of this year. If you ask me, that's a very interesting choice from Ubisoft. The Assassin's Creed series has been getting a lot of slack in recent releases, and I would have thought they would want a clean release. But they decided to go head to head with arguably the most anticipated game in recent memory, Cyberpunk 2077, which releases November 19th. Both of these titles are open world RPGs. Whether you don't want Valhalla to be an RPG, Ubisoft has swung that way for the series. This has overlapping audiences and could really hurt sales. Guys, Assassin's Creed is my favorite gaming series of all time, but Cyberpunk just looks too amazing to pass up. I don't have time for both, and a lot of others aren't either. I just don't see why Ubisoft did this. I vaguely talked about Legion's release date in my video on Legion, and that's in October, which I thought Valhalla would come out in, with Legion coming out early in September or even 2021. I hope it works out for Ubisoft, but personally, I think it was a mistake, since players will now really only have a choice between one or the other. Let me know down in the comments below if you think it was a good idea or not. Don't get me wrong guys, I'm excited for this game. I know I have some criticisms and questions that I want answered, but in time I hope these get cleared up. What are you most excited for in Valhalla from what Ubisoft has shown so far? If you enjoyed this video, click on the one that comes up next or the ones down in the description below. Don't forget to sub so you can keep up with the latest Valhalla content, and until next time, peace.